Hello, we begin in Khan Younis in southern Gaza, where Israeli forces have stormed the largest medical facility in the Strip. Nasser Hospital has been under siege for weeks. These are scenes moments after it was shelled overnight. Israeli soldiers then launched their raid, forcing everyone out, including patients in intensive care and families sheltering from Israeli attacks.
I left with my husband. He is blind. I was doing kidney dialysis. They destroyed the walls surrounding us, as well as Dr. Rizq's room. They ordered us to leave and fired at us. They fired bombs and rockets on our heads from the top. They demolished the building. We left from the door and we walked through sewage, along with my husband. The Israelis then took my husband and I lost my 2 bags. I cannot find them.
Last night was very difficult. The airstrikes were so intense and hit a room of patients. 2 people were killed and one of them is unidentified. He was hit by rocket fire and split in half. His lower part was inside the hospital and the other half outside the building. People were hurt, people who'd already been injured. The orthopedic department has been completely destroyed. The entire complex was in chaos.
The displaced and the patients were ordered to evacuate the hospital immediately. There were snipers and they hit above our heads. We couldn't move from building to building. There were many bodies by the hospital entrance. It was worse than what happened at Al-Shifa Hospital. I'm injured and I was forced to walk an hour because there were no ambulances, no medical staff and no Red Crescent. There was no one to help us escape. No one.
Let's get an update from Tareq Azzoum, who's joining us from Rafah city in southern Gaza. I mean, Tareq, these are harrowing stories coming out of Nasser Hospital. Not the first time that Israelis conduct a raid on a hospital where there are intensive care patients. What are you hearing about the situation right now and what's happened to the patients?
Well, it was clearly quite predictable, Doreen, that the Israeli forces were planning to storm the Nasser medical facility, as they have been putting the entire vicinity of the place under a clear Israeli military siege, where they were preventing anyone from moving there on the ground. And today they have stormed the vicinity of the hospital, as the Israeli forces had entered and stormed different departments of the hospital, as they were forcing people to flee and to get out from this medical facility. Now, also, the Israeli fighter jets have targeted the orthopedic department, where a number of medical teams have been injured inside this medical facility. But we need to clearly understand that there are still patients alongside with medical teams there inside the hospital, where the Israeli forces are informing and requesting from people to get out from the hospital, while there are some patients who are in a very desperate need for assistance by somebody else. They have refused their demands to afford them help, as they are forced to flee along there amid a clear blackout of the communication there, where nobody can know more information about what is happening in terms of the situation inside the hospital, because the Israeli forces are informing everyone to get out from this medical facility, while some people, by the way, get arrested as they were fleeing the hospital by the Israeli military forces throughout the military checkpoints that they were established on all ways that leading to Nasser Hospital. Now, the Israeli forces as well had stormed the yards of the hospital, where there are mass graves and cemeteries being established for people who did not manage to be buried outside of the medical facility. Also, their graves had been ruined and destroyed by the Israeli forces there as a part of the ongoing genocidal military campaign in that area.
Okay, Tareq, just hang on there for just a moment, because I'll get reaction from Hamdah and then come back to you and get an update on the Gaza Strip. Hamdah Salhut is joining us from occupied East Jerusalem to tell us what's being said by the Israelis on this, because they're putting forward claims that Hamas had previously held hostages at that hospital and that the bodies of deceased captives may be present. I mean, have they provided any credible evidence to support these claims, Hamdah?
No sort of evidence provided by the Israeli military about the claims they're making that captives were being held in the Nasser Hospital and that there are bodies of captives in the hospital as well. The Israeli army spokesperson Daniel Hagari speaking at length and releasing multiple statements saying that the Israelis had what they called credible intelligence that the captives were being held there, that there were bodies of captives, and additionally that Hamas was using the medical facility for military purposes, all of these claims for which they have not provided that proof to the public. But this is just the latest in a series of claims that they've made around hospitals, the Al-Rantisi Hospital, Al-Amal Hospital, and most notably the Al-Shifa Hospital. Remember, they said that Hamas was using it as some sort of military headquarters for their military operations, but that was not true, and there was no sort of information to back up those claims. There have also been cemeteries and graveyards that have been desecrated, bodies that have been dug up and taken from those grave sites because they also believed there were the bodies of captives there based on intelligence. But again, there was no result there, and the intelligence that they said they had to back up those claims was simply not provided. The Israeli army says that they're working at length to protect civilians, but at least 10,000 Palestinians are sheltering in and around the Al-Nasser medical complex, and at least one person has died as the hospital continues to be under siege. So the Israelis have been making these claims, but again, no proof to back them up yet again, Dareen.
Okay, Hamdah, thank you for that update from occupied East Jerusalem.